Every month with Urban Lifestyles, we do a segment with our partners, LGE, and this month is no different. Of course, we're here with Natasha Collins, and we're talking about energy matters, and it really matters in the month of September because it is Emergency Preparedness Month. And welcome back to Urban Lifestyles.
Great to be here during National Preparedness Month, Max.
So tell me, what are some things that we need to do, and what are those steps to getting those plans together?
Sure. Well, with LG&D and KU, we like to give folks about 5 tips because 5 is easy to remember and it gets us all thinking on the right track. The first of those tips is to make a plan. I know when I was younger, I used to hear this one a lot, but it really makes sense. So whether you're at home or at work, develop a plan that involves everyone who's in your home, everyone who's part of your work family, so that all of you know what to do in the event of different types of emergencies. And you're thinking of things like where will you meet, how will you stay in touch, and how to handle those different types of emergencies. When I mentioned that I used to hear make a plan when I was younger, it was usually in relation to a fire or a tornado. Right. So how will I get out of my house? What will be the meeting point for my family so that we can do a head count? Or during a tornado, where is the point in my home where I'll be most protected? This is a great time to start thinking about things like that. And if you have children, to go over this with them so that they feel like they have a plan too.
And that's great information because normally when we think about a plan, we're thinking about it for one particular instance. But as you said, you need one for work, you need one for home, and probably for your car as well.
That's exactly right. A lot of people don't think about what would I do if I had an emergency when I was on the road and I was stranded for a period of time. So we encourage folks to make that plan for not just home, but many different locations.
Okay, so what's the second step?
Sure. The second step is to make sure that you're stocked up with emergency items. Okay. So a lot of times during an emergency, unfortunately, we never know when it will strike. Sometimes there are projections if it's going to be weather related, but we don't know when an emergency can happen. So we might not always have time to get to the store to get those items that we might need. So stockpile those items now, put them all together in one place in your home. Make sure everyone knows where that place is and that they can get to it in the event of an emergency. I know we talk about emergency preparedness kits, and some of those items that you would find in a kit are great things to start stockpiling now. So think about what would sustain you and all of those who you need to account for in your plan for a period of 72 hours. So these are things like water, medication, phone chargers, battery-powered radios, things that you would need to sustain you for 72 hours, whether it's to stay informed or to have things like non-perishable food items and a can opener to make sure you can open those items, right?
And these are things that you can pick up in your local grocery store, your CVS or Walgreens or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned, these are things that are oftentimes in emergency preparedness kits. And oddly enough, that has to do with our third tip, is to make a kit and do it now before an emergency strikes, because as we mentioned, you won't always have the time to get these items. You can do some of that legwork without even leaving home, really, just by going on the internet. I know we have an emergency preparedness kit that we'll go through in a minute here, but you can find emergency preparedness kits online, and depending on how many people they include, whether it's a kit for 2 or 4, or depending on how many they're for and how many items are in that kit, they can be anywhere from $20 to I've seen upwards of $300 and $400. So it just depends, but you can be as prepared or get as many items online as you need.
And one thing about the kits that you buy that are already intact, you can always add on and make it to where it fits you and your family and your situation.
Exactly. It's a great starting point because, like I mentioned, you don't even have to go anywhere to get it. You can have it sent to you, and it can supplement anything else you need. Of course, you're going to want to think through other items that should be included, things like medications or some of those other things that might address specific situations if there's a health issue with someone in your family or different things like that. But yeah, it's a great starting point to buy those preparedness kits. Yes.
And number 4 on our list is?
Yes, number 4.
I feel like Jimmy Kimmel.
Well, number 4 is what you actually already mentioned is to take your kit mobile. Remember that an emergency can strike wherever you go. So lots of times we might not think about having one of those same kits that we keep at home in our car, but that's great to have. I actually, unfortunately, Max, recently got a flat tire on the expressway, right?
Okay.
And so even though that wasn't a situation that had me stranded for a long period of time, if I had been in a remote location, if it had been the middle of winter during a blizzard, I might have been in a tough spot. So you want to make sure you have things like blankets, things like some of those flashers or flares that you can have on the side of the road. Obviously, the water and the food would be great in case you're there for a while before emergency crews can get to you. These are all things that you want to think about and, plan accordingly. So for my vehicle too, I always like to keep a pair of rain boots and snow boots in there. So if I got to get out and push my car, I can do it.
And number 5 on our list.
Yes, number 5 is to keep informed. Of course, when it comes to weather emergencies and different things that involve our system, we have the online outage map, and it's a great resource. You can access it through your mobile device and take a look. And even with the way it's been upgraded as recently as last year, we have that weather radar overlay. So if there's weather moving into the area that's a severe weather or something that is a concern to you, you can see how that weather is tracking, when it might get to your area, and then plan accordingly. Also, customers can make sure that they are registered for text, which I'm sure you are.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can text your outage to the number 4 LGEKU, and that can give you information. You can text status to that same number, and once you've notified us of your outage, you can get information on the status of your outage and when your service might be restored. So those are great ways to keep informed and make sure that you know what's going on and what emergency might be upon you during a certain time.
So as we're wrapping this up, what is one key piece of information that people need to know, not only about September, but just emergency preparedness in general?
Do it in advance.
Okay.
I think that's one of the most important things. I think we always think, whether it's an emergency or something else, that there's going to be tomorrow, that we can put it off another day. And that's the thing about emergencies. They are such, not just because of what happens during them, but because oftentimes we're unprepared for them and we don't expect them. So if you plan in advance and if you have what you need in advance, then it can be that much better, or at least you can plan in advance to try to handle it that much better when it does hit.